Brittany Cotton, newly appointed head of coaching at 7 CTOs. Was the onboarding to your satisfaction?
It really was. Felt like there were red carpets and glitter and all the things anyone could ever want to be onboarded somewhere.
You know, I used to handle onboarding at 7 CTOs, but they not so politely asked me to step aside.
I'm just going to think in my mind that that was good because it was so great. They must have really been feeling like you weren't up to the task. So,
It's just that I tend to forget which step I'm at. So I tend to start maybe with steps 2 and 3, and then I jump to step 12 and then back to 8. And Beth put an end to that.
yay, bet.
So appointing a head of coaching was a such a big mission for me in my head. And when I was able to meet you and you showed interest in the role and I got to know you, can I just publicly state how thankful I am that you have joined our mission, our family, and that you are going to take care of our people?
You may publicly state that. Thanks for asking.
So, you also have a coaching practice called Be Radical Coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And so, coaching, just for the people. One time you said to me, "Hey man, we're using a lot of coachy language, so maybe we should just understand that people might not always know what we're talking about. So
Mm-hmm.
why don't you give like a little intro to the type of coaching you do and the involvement that you have?"
Yeah. So I work with people and companies to ensure that their thinking, behaviors, and speaking are in alignment and conducive to the future and culture they want to build. Yeah. And I do that by working with people primarily one on one, but often in, occasionally in groups and workshops and getting really clear on, you know, who is this person in the world? What are their goals? What are their missions in life? And what's going to get them there? And what's currently in the way? And I like to think of coaching as a mirror, right? When you walk up to the mirror tells you you're in a gray shirt or you're in a white shirt, you're wearing glasses, right? But we fill in all the other stuff. Oh, I look tired today, or I look like this, or I seem like this. My job is to actually stay the mirror. Hey, here's what I see. Hey, here's what this looks like, just
Oh.
from a place of simply objective. What about this? So that people can see themselves in a new light and be with themselves and hear themselves in a way that's going to move them past the internal hamster wheel that
Mm.
plays all the time.
And I got to meet you as my program leader at Accomplishment Coaching,
Mhm.
and we have our own journey of how we got to know each other. Simply because you're the leader, you're out there, you're leading a whole group of us, and I never related to teachers very well, so it was
Well,
fun.
that's why you were so awful at the beginning. Kidding.
So it was fun to get to know you. What I and also pretty life changing for me, not only to learn about ontological coaching and graduating the course. By the way, I don't know if you've got the paperwork yet, but I graduated. But also, as part of the program, we were assigned a coach. And so we were able to not only learn about the practice, but also be the benefactors of actual coaching. And that was a game changer for me. Game changer. And so the thing that I'm finding interesting as I've learned it and as I've benefited from it is that to be that mirror as a coach, you have to kind of get out of your own head trash and your own issues in a way, and that has been quite a journey for me. So,
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things about coaching. It's very freeing, right? It's my responsibility to make sure that I'm not bringing in any of my stuffs or opinions or judgments about the world or humans or situations into my coaching. And because coaching is such a big part of my life, private practice, then training the Etiennes of the world and other people, um, it makes for quite a nice living, right? I've gotten really good everywhere at really looking at things objectively and noticing and becoming curious and building relationship intentionally, as I know we've been talking a lot about in 7 CTOs. So, um, to me, it really is. I don't think I've ever said this, but I don't want to say it. I don't like the word, but it's kind of a lifestyle, right? When someone
Yeah,
chooses to be coach in the world, you really learn how to bring those elements of coach everywhere.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the just for me again, as I am a fledgling coach, just the practice of noticing, not speaking into the space, your own thing, being that true mirror, the true reflection. And then I think I texted you a couple of weeks ago. No, holy mollies, it was last week. The courage to reflect, the amount of courage it takes just to be with someone and speak what is not being
Mhm.
spoken. I find that so powerful.
Yeah. It's a lot of space to hold in that we're hearing what's not being said, but we're also some of the few people in the world who's then willing to say that to people what we hear. Right? Our job is to reflect to people the thing that nobody else will reflect. And
Yes.
it's pretty scary at first.
Yeah, and I'm noticing in my own journey that my courage, or I guess my discernment, is growing as to when does that then get spoken, or when is a good time to reflect that back. And I will say, with my one-on-one coaching clients, which I mostly coach CTOs, the the ability to just tell someone what you're seeing and what you're hearing, oh my goodness, it should be a basic human skill. But I guess the way in which we're raised and the way we survive our youth and our
Mhm.
adolescence just takes that away.
Yeah. And I think as you're saying this, what I'm thinking of is that we start taking it away from ourselves when we're pretty little, right? Something happens, we get yelled at, trauma, whatever it is, and we start putting up a little bit of barrier, right? There's those things we don't want people to see, and as we get really good at putting up our barrier, it keeps people out, but it also keeps us from wondering and thinking it's okay to ask other people about their barrier or what's
Mm,
behind their barrier.
mm. Yeah, it's amazing. And then of course you're training people how to be around you, and then you're wondering why you don't get the results that you're looking for. So it's a fascinatingly complex web that could
Mhm.
really be unwound with some fairly simple concepts that, again, in turn are so hard to actually do. So there's a mouthful. Um, so we went through the coaching. I went through the coaching program. So you're still involved with accomplishment coaching. In fact, you're the chief growth officer, right?
Mhm.
Great. So and as we were discovering, or as I went through this process, and which is true to my character, I was like, no, I have to get this to my CTOs. Like, I have to get I'm not, I want all CTOs to be coaches. That's not going to happen overnight. But what
Mhm.
are some key concepts that we can start warming people up to? And I think I came to you and said, hey, how can we get this coaching thing happening for CTOs? And then you said something profound to me, which was, before we feed them coaching, we just have to retrain the listening. And I thought that was genius, because so much of what gets said around coaching is stereotyped as fluffy stuff that
Mhm.
doesn't really affect much change. And I know that the coaching we're talking about is transformative. So how does one unlearn all those concepts that you have around coaching, and how do we start introducing some of those key concepts into the CTO's day to day?
I think where you start is realizing that you actually have to move away from coaching as a field or an occupation, right? Something that you have to stand or learn about and read about. It actually has to be put that aside and get back to really being with someone, right? Because when we're training new coaches, we're training their listening and their speaking. That's where we start. As you went through the program, you know this. We do so much training on someone's listening. What do you hear when people say? How do you think, what's going on for them as they're speaking? What's going on for you while they're speaking, right? All these different dynamics. But if we just put it in a container of coaching and it's like, learn all these techniques, learn all these tools, then coaching becomes a vehicle. And we know that the vehicle works, but I don't think that the vehicle is as powerful as it could be if we don't first put it aside and be like, hey, this is you being so in-depthly connected to someone and in relationships with someone that you are going to see things about them and hear things about them that maybe no one has seen or heard for years. And that's going to create a whole experience for that other person.
Mm.
So it's
And I,
really first just forget all these techniques and strategies
yes,
and how do we just be with someone?
yes, it's the so funny. I was talking to a coach once, and I showed them. Oh, I think it's what was it? Something coach, and she was like, "Yeah, I mean, you can read the book, but
Mhm.
really, coaching is that ability to listen, truly listen to what someone's saying, and then how that matches up with who they're being.
Mhm.
And that to me is not a checklist. And again, I've been through this program for 12 months, and I still feel like I've only scratched the surface
Mhm.
of who I can be with someone.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing it for 6 years and still, I get a little bit deeper all the time. What I can hear, what I can sense in other people. I mean, it kind of feels like the way we train. This is maybe a terrible analogy. I've never thought about this, but the way we might train a dog, right, that's doing some sort of rescue or something where they have to really understand what does this smell mean and what does this sound mean, and right. So we're really slowing people down and saying, "Hey, what do you notice in this person
Mm,
speaking? Just
mm,
just the words. Just notice the words. Then what do you notice in their inflection? Then what do you notice in their posture? How are they holding themselves? What's the emotion you can pick up on?" And
mm,
you're not necessarily guessing, you're just noticing these things and then sharing with the client or the person that you're with. But I think it's really slowing people down and seeing, what are all the things we can pick up on that every day we've been ignoring for years.
mm,
And what I love about this is every person that's come through the program, at first it's a little difficult, but then 12 months in, 3 months in, 4 months in, you're like, oh my gosh, I now see this stuff everywhere, right? I can look across someone at the grocery store and see, that person seems there's heavy, like
yes,
sad, or there's something over there. I
yes.
can tell they're not having a good day.
What are you noticing about me?
Well, it's a little hard because you're a little pixelated for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that a coaching term?
No.
Oh, that's not a bad idea.
Wait.
Hey, things are a little pixelated over there. What are we gonna do with that? Uh, the one thing I noticed in my with my people, i.e., technical leaders, and actually, this is probably what comes to mind for me right now is the how much we put into the space with someone, whether it's insecurity or just a desire to please or a awkwardness or it's this is as you talk about noticing
Mhm.
someone and training your noticing. I am noticing this like a house on fire, which is how much we are inserting our own words, our own things,
Mhm.
and then how much we're actually controlling the outcome of the conversations, and how impossible it feels to just be open to
Mhm.
not knowing where it's going to end.
Yeah. It's so great you said that because I know we started with curiosity, right? In our first, what was that? August trimester? I don't know. Oh, you're suddenly not pixelated. It's nice. Um,
When was that? Was it? It was August, September, October.
no,
No, it was
September.
September.
Um,
Yeah,
Great.
so we backed into curious. So let me set it up for us. We talked about the training, the learning, I mean the listening. So
Mhm.
not to jump right into the coaching stereotype, but how do we get people to
Yes.
how do we get CTOs to be more with their people?
Yeah.
And the first and then I brought this to you basically, and I was like, hey Britt, I want to help people and help our 7 CTOs people, but where do we start? We only have 4 months really, and then this is where you started helping me think through this. So take us through that.
Yeah. So just a few minutes ago, you were talking about how, these aren't the exact words you use, but we're never really with people just as they are, right? Because we're bringing in all our stuff, right? Whether that's simply just the day, the mood that we're in, or what we have. We have all these views and ideas about whatever they're talking about, right? So rarely in the world are we simply just listening to someone just to hear what they're saying and not already have an answer and not think about what we're going to say next and not have it remind us of something, right? So with coaching, it's so important that every conversation gets to be a new conversation and that the coach isn't bringing in any of their stuff, no opinions, no judgments, no assessments. They're really just meeting the client right where they are. And that's why it's so transformative, is because every conversation gets to be a new conversation and have the opportunity to go somewhere it's never gone before. That's not what happens in our workplace, right? Most conversations go to a similar few places each time with specific people,
So true. So
right?
true.
So starting with curiosity, because what does it look like and what becomes possible if the people that we're working with and leading, we're suddenly not bringing in our, what I would call our already always listening, the thing we're already listening for that person, or the thing we're expecting to hear from that person,
Mm.
or we're getting ready for, oh, do I need to be upset about this, do I need to, am I going to have to jump in, right? Whatever the thing is, but just actually having a practice of what would it be like if I just heard this person for what they're saying right here and right now and got curious about it without anything from the past or anything about my stuff. Where could the conversation go that it
Yeah.
maybe has never gone before?
Yeah, I think that what did you say? Already listening for ears.
Already always listening. Like
Already.
we're already always listening for something.
Yeah, and one of the exercises you had us do in our forums
Mhm.
was drove me nuts because you had us break into dyads, and then you had us have one person describe an issue for 5 minutes, and then the listener was not allowed to interrupt or actively contribute, but had to make a little tick mark or a check mark every time they felt the urge to do that.
Mhm.
And my and so I facilitated 2 forums that month, and I did this with people, and I thought the hardest part was going to be to not interrupt, which is damn hard because speaking for myself, I use interruption as a way to actively, like I almost talk together with a person. Um, it's just it's a tennis match, and
Mhm.
so the interruption is less of an interruption and more of a you hit the ball back and then I hit it to you, and I thought that for that 5 minutes the hardest part would be to not interrupt. But you know what the hardest part
What?
was to not get bored out of my mind. And I realized in that moment how poorly I was actually listening
Mm.
because in the tennis match, I am, because
Y-
I'm the already always, what's that thing,
Already
listening
always
thing?
listening.
I have to .com that. Um, but because I was doing that, I was actually just narrowing the person's words into the funnels of where I could contribute. Oh, this
Yeah.
reminds me of this. Oh, and then I think that I have the appearance of being curious and contributory, but really I was just entertaining myself.
Mhm. Yeah. Or inserting yourself to say, where can I provide value? Oh, what does this remind me of? And then I can tell them about it. Or, oh, they need to hear this, right? We listen really for us a lot of the time.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And so for the CTO mind who has been rewarded their whole life for quickly funneling whatever's being said into a
Mm-hmm.
solution, and that is rewarded. Like, oh wow, I wasn't even done describing the problem, and they knew the answer.
Right.
And now they're managing people, they're facilitating conversations, they are resolving conflict, but it's not being done from a place of true being with and curious. It's being done from a place of how can I solve this as quickly as possible?
Yeah, and great. Like we need people in the world solving things, right? Like there's a reason why we have technological officers, right? They provide us with things and products and ideas that serve us and support us. So the other thing that I think is really powerful about coaching is it's not about, oh, you're doing this wrong. You should do it this way, right? It's that, oh, here's how you've been doing it. Great. Is it serving you? Is it working? Fabulous. And let's add in this tool and this tool and this tool. So in any given moment, you have the capacity to practice any given skill that you have and then have a much more expansive opportunity of transformation and
Okay,
shift.
so that's very important for me to hear now, which is don't throw out the buckets and the
Mhm.
skills that you've had. That's not the point. The point is to add these extra tools of listening.
Yeah, because especially leaders and of companies, you do need to solve things. There are things that are going to come your way and problems you're going to have to solve. So it's fabulous that there's all these amazing CTOs in the world who are so like great at that skill, right? They're there because they're the people trust to figure something out and create a solution. Fabulous. And what happens if we now expand their ability to be with problems? Because sometimes if we've all heard this. What is it? Uh, Today's solution is tomorrow's problem, right? So if we're only ever solving problems, that's kind of limited. But if we're looking at situations and things and we're like, okay, here's what I would do if I would solve it. What if I was being curious about it?
Mm,
What could that lead to? Maybe you would jump ahead. Maybe you would have the solution of something 3 years from now because you didn't just stop at solving that problem and you thought, wait, before I just jump in here, I'm going to look at this in a different way, which is why we started with curiosity. It's
which
a
is,
it's a tool.
I'm realizing now I need to go back and unsay a bunch of things I've told in my forums. I'm so terrible. Um, that honestly, that's actually genius because it's the ability to pontificate and solve and lead and be passionate and say all the things, but then also to be open and curious about
Mhm.
what that's doing or
Yeah.
how it impacts or I notice what's coming up for me or I think that's what I'm hearing, right?
Yeah, it reminds me. I wish I had a good example of this. And I know I've seen documentaries or stories, but when someone, like, let's say I was going to say like a physicist, but then I was like, I don't even know if I know what a physicist does. So maybe I shouldn't say that. But
I think
let's
they
say
do. I think
a
they do.
scientist can't figure out something in nature, but then a composer or someone who does music is like, knows them and they're like, well, have you thought about this? This is the way
Mm,
sound waves move, or this is the way something else is, right? They take something else and then they can see this thing totally different. It's
yes.
kind of like that, would be like, um, or we could do a sports related. Maybe
No,
there's
no. The,
something.
the, ex- the example I like to use is
Yeah.
when you watch a movie with the sound turned off. You just see you just see different. Is that
Mhm.
is that what you're saying? Is you just see things differently? You notice different things because you aren't being led by the audio.
Yeah, a little bit. And that, to add to that, like if there was something I was really good at in baseball, asterisk, not true. But if there was something I was really good at in baseball, and then I realized that I could actually apply that to playing basketball, now I'm suddenly better at both sports, right? Or I can take what I have here and apply it here, and it changes the other game for me. So I think that sometimes what happens is when we become so solution oriented and problem fixing, we're missing out on maybe seeing the whole picture. So if we add
Mm,
in curiosity, maybe we're going to see something different in that situation that we
mm.
wouldn't see if we were just like, Oh, I have to fix this. I
I
have to solve
I
this.
and that's why I loved what, when I came to you about, hey, can we turn CTOs into coaches? Um, you were like, okay, well, let's break it into four things, and let's start with the being curious or the curiosity mindset as a tool that, even if that's the only thing we do, I mean, that in and of itself is an amazing tool. And as it turned out, when we did it, um, I think 50+% of people thought that they were being curious and
Mhm.
realized that they were not.
Yeah. Yeah. It kind of reminds me as we're talking about this, like parenting, right? Like when we're being curious about our kids, it's because we have a certain belief of how they should be at school or what they should be doing with their friends. So you're asking questions because you want to make sure they're following the
So
rules
true.
and doing stuff right. Right. But imagine what could happen in your relationships with your kids if it was true curiosity, right? Because I feel like we think we're being curious, but really we have an
Mm,
agenda and we're leading
mm.
most of the
And I
time when
wonder,
we're being
yeah,
curious.
absolutely. And I mean, first of all, our kids see right through it, and that's why
Mhm.
they do not answer those questions.
Yeah.
And secondly, I, is there a litmus test where you could just know, oh wait, hang on, this is not coming from curiosity, it's coming from
Mhm.
control or insecurity. Is there a way to know that?
I mean, I think that's doing work with yourself
Um,
and personal development and really getting I said already always listening because all of us have a couple that we constantly listen from. Right, wrong is a huge one, right? Performance, needing to not fail, people pleasing, right? So there's a lot of people in the world who listen for, okay, you know, where can I provide value? So that
mm,
they're constantly knowing that they are important. And some
mhm.
people, so I don't even remember how I got back to the already always listening, but we're not actually often being curious. We're
Yeah.
tending to be curious because we have an agenda
Yes.
or something we want to
Yes.
get to.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, as a boss or as a manager, there may be a very legitimate agenda, right?
Mhm.
Productivity, efficiency, get tasks A, B, and C done. I mean, that still has to happen.
Mhm.
Bringing
Yeah.
curiosity would be somewhat disingenuous if you're meeting to sync up on project A, B, or C, right?
Yeah, and that's why it's never, "Oh, no, throw this thing out, we have to do it a different way." It's having these different skills that are inside of the coaching framework to practice, curiosity being one of them, so that when something's not going the way you want it to or something's in the way, great, here's another tool I have.
Mm,
And what we know about humans and interactions is that it's all layered. There's never just one thing happening because I have my belief systems, you have your belief system, so on and so forth. So curiosity is just one tool to that can help us maybe take down one of the layers sometimes.
yeah, I like that. And I think the shift for me right now is just the don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's a tool that we can add. It's a tool we have access to, and being able to notice, being able to reflect. These are all things that just enhance our ability to be with people in these hierarchical organizational systems.